Good evening, everyone. This is Tuesday, August 21st, and I'm doing a video today without my own webcam on, but that's okay. I'm going to talk about a few things going on right now, and particularly I'm going to be talking about Hurricane Lane and the Hawaiian Islands as well. Probably the most specific thing I'll be able to talk about today. But I'll talk about the general forecast for most of the country over the next week or two, a lot of which can change, but we will, I'll try to limit that a little bit. So here's the current radar, and I just also wanted to mention, and I'll mention this as I go through, I'm going to mention some of the websites that I'm using to show you a lot of these things going on, and kind of describe them a little bit. If you're interested in checking these websites out, you can. I don't own any of these websites, so I'm going to try to give some credit to some of these. This is this website, if I can get the top of it on, is WeatherTap. It's weathertap.com. It's a subscription paid website, and I think it's in the order of $85 a year that you pay for this to get basically a whole bunch of information. You can get radar data, satellite data, model data, forecast. I don't usually use the forecast data, but you can see the current temperatures, everything, lightning data, severe weather information, etc. And it has some pretty good radar. It's known for its high resolution radar. This is just a general image of the whole country. See thunderstorms going on over here in the east, mostly mid-Atlantic, where they don't necessarily need any more rain. So the flash flood warning is going on just west of Philadelphia right now, as we have a cluster of thunderstorms. And we'll see what's causing that in a little bit. This is actually that low that caused that some severe weather here in the Mississippi and Ohio valleys yesterday. Have a cluster of severe thunderstorms currently moving through the Oklahoma and Texas Panhandle. Pretty small cluster. See a lot of these thunderstorms. I don't know if you can actually see my mouse. See a lot of these thunderstorms. A lot of these thunderstorms in the southwest are moving from the south. This is basically monsoonal flow, monsoonal moisture from the Gulf of California, and this is common in the summertime. And then, again, this is a mid-Atlantic thunderstorm, so they don't necessarily need any more rain. Otherwise, fairly dry across the country. That's what's currently going on right now. So let me show you. This is what the upper air pattern, as I kind of illustrated on Saturday. And I'll take a moment to mention this website. This is Tropical Tidbits. It basically takes model data and is displayed by, I don't think his name is on this page, but it's by Levi Cohen, and he does a really good job at displaying all this data, so it's a really good website to use. It has a whole bunch of different regions to look at. So this is what I have been showing most often, and I just wanted to give him credit for this website that I show a lot. So this is a GFS model, and this is actually 3 days ago. So let me go to the current time. This is as of Saturday. Let me see if I can go to the current time. There you go. Okay, so this is the current time, right? Well, roughly right here. This is actually as of 3 hours ago. The evening model is not quite yet started as of when I pulled this up, at least. So I'll just notice some quick features here. Basically jet stream pattern kind of looks like this. You have a little trough here in the east, trough here in the west. In the United States, so you have this ridge poking into the northwest. I created another hot day. It was 94 degrees today in Portland. Have this low upper trough just to the east of where I am. So in the interior northwest, this ridge now, that the southwest ridge has kind of migrated a little bit already, kind of sitting over the south central United States. This trough in the east that is bringing that low here now in Ontario, cold front coming down through the Ohio valleys and with the spring of these thunderstorms along the Mid-Atlantic coast currently right now. And then out in the Pacific, we have Hurricane Lane here. It's this southeast of the Big Island of Hawaii, and I'll talk about that a lot more as I go through this. After I give it a little general forecast. So here's essentially what's going to happen. Again, this is just a GFS model's interpretation of it. I'll show the European model as well. But I just basically show some general features. So if you have any questions about anything specific, let me know. So this is now, let me go back for a second. Okay, so this is tomorrow. Pattern hasn't changed too much. This is now, I'll fast forward to basically Thursday. So to start with, so Thursday now, our pattern shifted a little bit. We now have a little bit of a trough here in the Pacific Northwest, so we're definitely getting westerly onshore flow. And matter of fact, tomorrow Northwest is going to be our last hot day for at least a little while. Really hot day at least. Could break the record of the most number of 90-degree days in a year in Portland. I have a separate post about that. And then we get a good marine push coming in tomorrow night into Thursday, and temperatures more in the 70s starting Thursday, and possibly even 60s a little bit. And I'll show you between Friday and Monday. I'll show you that in a bit. But generally, the ridge kind of relaxes a little bit here in the south. It's not as intense, so a little bit cooler air coming into the United States for the most part. Hurricane Lane, I'll talk about, again, getting pretty close to the Hawaiian Islands here by Thursday morning. So we'll go a little bit further. This is now Friday morning, and I'll point out Hurricane Lane almost like basically right on the Hawaiian Islands. And again, I'll talk about this a little more, so I'm not going to go into that. Trough in the west, kind of, like I said, it's more cooler air coming into the United States. Even this little upper low moving into the north central United States, which came from the northwest, and the Pacific Northwest, to bring some colder air into the northern plains as well. But Friday, let's go a little more forward in time, and if it decides to work for me. Okay, so let's fast forward now to Sunday, and our general pattern for Sunday. We have this ridge off in the Pacific, south of the Gulf of Alaska, bringing this trough into the northeast. And I'll show you the European model actually has. So here's the main, the deepest part of the trough here. The European actually has a little further west, which would bring a chance of rain into the Pacific Northwest early next week, and so we're watching that since we really need rain here. And then this ridge shifts to the east. So this big ridge here shifts to the east, starts bringing some hot weather into especially the East Coast by early next week. Fast forward here. This is the overall general pattern. I'll describe a little more. Point out some other features soon. So now, as we get more longer into the future, the GFS model wants to hold on. It's now 10 days into the future. GFS model holds on to the same general pattern with this trough in the northwest, this ridge here in the east for hot temperatures along the east, cooler temperatures in the northwest, kind of middle of the road temperatures in the central part of the country, although if we have a frontal boundary set up like this, it'll be warmer on this side and cooler on this side. But it's August still, so not a lot of contrast. This is the forecast for August 31st. As we go further into the future, the GFS model, the US GFS model, wants to This is now 15 days in the future, so it wants to rebuild this ridge across most of the United States, but this is way out 16 days in the future, so hard to trust this kind of pattern or this kind of forecast when it's that far out in advance, and the models continue to, the GFS model continues to flip-flop back and forth. But in general, like the Northwest, it wants to keep the Northwest fairly cool most of the time, relative to the past month and a half at least, where we've been, we've had the hottest periods on record over the past month and a half in Northwest, and heat up a lot of the East Coast a little bit. So let me just go show you the European model, see what it does, or show you what it does. Wait for it to load. Okay, so this is now this morning. This is this morning's European model. The evening model doesn't come out until a few hours from now. It doesn't start coming out a few hours from now. So here we have, go back one, the same pattern for the initial conditions. Obviously, the ridge poking in northwest, upper low, in interior northwest, and then this trough here in the Midwest and East that is bringing this low and cold front. That is bringing this thunderstorms along in the Ohio Valley off to the East Coast today. Again, this is as of this morning, so it's slightly earlier than the initial model I showed you from GFS. All right, go through the European model forecast here. If it decides to work. Okay. Sorry, I'm saying that a lot today. And we have the same general evolution of the forecast, but here is now Sunday morning, and trying to get Monday morning. There's Monday morning. So the European for Monday morning brings this upper low in northwest further west, as I mentioned before. I'll redraw that a little bit, a little further south. So it brings the upper low a little further west than the GFS had it, which could bring more of a chance of rain to some of the areas west of the Cascades, which is what we need. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty about exactly where this upper low is going to go, how much rain we're going to get out of it. So I kind of have a feeling it might go a little bit further east, but then again, this is the European. European tends to be pretty good at these. So, and then the European, here's the ridge, and the ridge shifting to the eastern part of the country as well. And then in the extended out to 10 days European model, we're still looking at basically an onshore flow, maybe a little bit of a warm up into the west as this ridge tries to build in a little bit. And this is next Friday morning, but generally still much cooler than it's been. And then this big ridge on the east coast that's going to heat up the east. And I didn't talk about Hurricane Lane on the European model, but I will talk about it more as I said. So let's look a little more at, this is the precipitation forecast now from the GFS model. So I showed you the upper air pattern. This is kind of how it interprets it, interprets everything happening at the surface as a reflection of that upper air pattern. So this is as of later this evening in the west, early tomorrow morning in the east, and we have this the surface low here in Ontario, as I pointed out before. I have a cold front coming right through here. I should use blue for cold fronts, but I'm not going to keep shifting colors. It's actually kind of more like this, but and this is what's leading to these thunderstorms here in the East Coast, as you saw on the current radar image, as the cold front continues to move off to the east. You have this monsoonal flow bringing all this moisture and thunderstorms into the southwest as well. Let's see. So let me go forward in time, show you what's going to happen to these surface features. Okay, so the surface flow in the east tracks off to the northeast here as this cold front keeps moving east, and so the chance of rain and thunderstorms moves off the coast. Tomorrow we still have this chance of of rain here in New England down to the Appalachians tomorrow. As actually, I do the cold front a little too far west. It's actually back here. So we still have a chance of thunderstorms tomorrow. There as that front continues to move off to the east, although a little slow, kind of a little slowly. And at this point, by tomorrow night, and then especially by early Thursday morning, now our low up here way off in northern Canada, and our cold front is off the coast here. So pretty much most of the East Coast by Thursday morning will be out of the rain and thunderstorms. We do have a chance of some rain, maybe some thunderstorms here in the plains as we get a little bit of return flow from the Gulf of Mexico here, bringing some moisture into the plains. All right, so later on Thursday, this complex actually moves out more into the plains, and if you remember, I showed you on the upper air pattern, we have this little trough, this little upper low here that came from northwest, the Pacific Northwest, bringing a cooler air here, so we get a surface low and a little bit of a cold front here, so we have a chance of showers and thunderstorms here up in the upper Midwest into the northern plains by Thursday night, with that feature coming in. And our moisture flow from monsoonal kind of shuts off a little bit, so the chance of monsoonal thunderstorms has slowed down a little bit by later in the week. So this low moves east across the upper Midwest. By Friday, not a whole lot going on. Outside of that, at least in the United States, up in Canada with this surface low, you can have some rain up there. Thunderstorms down in Florida with all the moisture down there, of course. Let's see. So we're going into Saturday now, and that low and that front moves off to the east. And as we fast forward to Sunday, so even though the GFS model is a little further east with this upper trough here in the Pacific Northwest than the European, which is a little more over here, it's still bringing rain into a lot of western Washington, to some of western Washington, some western Oregon on Sunday, and possibly even into Monday as well, as we have basically that whole upper level troughiness, we call it troughiness kind of, coming into the Pacific Northwest. So chance of rain Sunday, chance of rain Monday, mostly chance of showers. Not sure quite yet how heavy it's going to be. It depends on exactly where that upper low moves and steps up, and we'll be able to clarify that again here a little better in the coming days. Rain and thunderstorms here in the southwest as we have moisture coming up from the Gulf of Mexico. And let's see, let me show you the upper air pattern for this time that I'm showing you right now. So this is on Monday, and we have this general trough, upper level trough coming into northwest, into northern plains, which leads to it also leads to surface low here in the northern plains. As we have some cooler air coming in behind it, some much warmer air coming in on the east side of that low, and so we get this upper low here, and so we can have basically unsettled weather here in the northern plains, northern Rockies, and some rain and showers coming in. Windy conditions east of that trough here in the plains, and you can tell it's windy because of all these black lines here. These are what we call isobars. Oops, hold on a second. Close this. So all these black lines are isobars. These are lines of equal pressure, and the closer together they are, essentially the windier it is. So this whole region, fairly windy conditions come Monday with this. Let's see, so that's already on next Monday. That's almost a week away. So fast forward through time. GFS forecasting is skipping quickly through these. brings more rain way into the future, but this depends on exactly where upper lows and troughs come into northwest. We're still not really seeing any hurricane activity in the Atlantic, and I'll briefly touch on that a little bit in a little bit. The GFS actually brings air cool enough. This is at 10 days next Friday on August 31st. Air cool enough in the northwest with this upper low that we see a little snow in the mountains possibly. So, like way up in the mountains, not not anywhere low levels, but up in the Canadian Rockies, at really high levels. So, we'll keep an eye on whether that happens, but that's way out there. So GFS wants to show a little bit of like tropical activity here coming into the long range, and again, too far out to really know exactly what happens. The tropics are really hard to predict long in advance when nothing has formed yet. So, because the formation of tropical cyclones depends so much on sea surface temperatures and wind shear and a whole bunch of different factors as to whether a tropical system can get organized. So, all right. So that's basically a general surface pattern, and if I didn't mention, all the colors are actually precipitation. You can see here: rain, freeze, rain, sleet, snow. So it's basically the intensity of the precipitation. So I don't think I mentioned that before. Okay, and so this is a current drought monitor across the western United States. So how severe drought is across the western part of the country, and you can basically see this color orange is a severe drought. So almost all of Oregon, Southwest Washington is currently in a severe drought, which says a lot for summertime, because we don't get a lot of rain usually anyway in the summertime. So it takes a lot in the summer to get a severe drought. So we obviously need a lot of rain here. Extreme drought even in portions of southwest central Oregon, northwest of Crater Lake National Park, for example. So obviously exceptional droughts here in the southwest, portions of Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. So they really need rain as well. And they're getting some rain with that monsoonal flow, but at the same time, some of those thunderstorms could also be dry thunderstorms where rain doesn't reach the ground, and so you get lightning that could start wildfires without that precip. So they really need rain down there as well. All right, let me briefly show you temperatures, forecast temperatures by GFS, just to show you the heating up in the east that we're expecting. Let me go to the current time, or close to the current time at least. Okay, so this was its forecast for this afternoon. Well, it was afternoon in the east, early afternoon in the east. So this is evening. So now this is basically peak heating on the west coast for today, and I'll just hopefully try to slowly go through them. I'm not sure how the animation will work on this video, but we see tomorrow. You see the heat in the west, not so hot in the east. Although these forecasts are for every 6 hours, so these forecasts kind of miss the peak heating in the far east, and kind of actually all but the west coast. So it gets a lot of the heating in the west, but not necessarily the east, just because of this only shows images for every 6 hour forecast temperatures. But that said, I'm just showing you a general pattern. So now this is Thursday, and Friday, and it's going slow. So on Friday you can see we're starting to heat up here in the central part of the country now, and of course into the southwest. But we're actually cooling down here in northwest as we have more onshore flow. So definitely, and this is 4 p.m. here it's during peak heating a lot here in the west. So we're starting to see definitely the impacts of the cooler air here in the west on this is Friday. And then Saturday, same thing. The heat in the central part of the country, cooler in the west. And then we get into Sunday. And we start seeing, so definitely cooler. Hold on, let me do one more frame here. No, I'll just stay there. So definitely cooler in the east than the northwest, and this is actually late morning in the northwest, but I actually went to the next one, and it's about the same. I'll show you that in a second. But we're starting to see all this heating up now, starting to go, and as that ridge builds in the central, the eastern part of the country. This is now on Sunday. So this is now during peak heating northwest, and we still see much cooler temperatures in northwest than we've been seeing. All right, and then so basically just to show you the how temperatures are flip-flopping. So this is going through next week, and you can just basically see all the warm air, 80s and 90s across the east, across the plains, the Midwest, and the East Coast, while we cool down in the west, and while the Pacific Northwest cools down. Tuesday may heat up a little bit on the West Coast again as the ridge starts building in a little bit, starts to poke in from the Pacific Ocean. So as we get toward Wednesday, now it cools down again northwest, and I'll go back one frame and you still see all these 90s up across the West Coast. I mean, the GFS model is forecasting 96. There you go. 96 here in southeast New Hampshire, for example. So 90s up and down the East Coast, even 80s, 90s into the plains of the south as that ridge just builds into the east. And we cool down the northwest, and we basically have this general pattern here where we have cooler air in the west, warmer air in the east. All right, and I will pretty much stop there because beyond this, temperature forecasting especially isn't great, but I'll do one more day next Thursday, and again, just the heat in the east and the cool temperatures in the west. So that's what the GFS model is forecasting. All right, that's just a general evolution of what's going to happen in the next week or so across the United States. Now the rest of the time I'm going to talk about Hurricane Lane, which is a powerful high-end Category 4 hurricane in the Pacific Ocean, and I don't really have to outline where Lane is, but this right here I'm outlining in red, if you can see it, is the big island of Hawaii, and I'll show you a little better picture of this in a second. So it's southeast of the big island at the moment, and here's a better image, actually. I actually had a better image than that up, and a little bit closer image. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. Wow, I am. Yeah, this is it. Actually, this is it right here. So this is. If I can get a visible image. Sorry, actually, it is already up. Well, this is an infrared satellite image, and I thought I had it visible up, but it still should be light over in Hawaii, so we still should be able to get the visible image up here. And if it decides to load, all right, here it is. I'll animate this as well, so you can see which way Lane is moving. Okay, so it's pretty clear here now. Here's Hawaii. Here's the center of Hurricane Lane right here, and it's I'm waiting for it to load the animation, but it's basically moving on a west-northwest track at the moment, and it's expected to actually start curving closer to Hawaii, and I'll show you that in a minute. So Hawaii is definitely watching this powerful Hurricane Lane as it takes a turn toward mostly the eastern part, now of the Hawaiian Islands. That'll tell you that. I'll show you why that is in a few minutes. All right, so here is the GFS forecast of what Hurricane Lane and what it wants Hurricane Lane to do. The hurricane, here's the Hawaiian Islands right here. These latitude and longitude markers just get in the way, and my computer's running low, but it's a lot slower than it did yesterday. So here's Hurricane Lane, obviously. And as we go forward in time, this is the track that GFS takes Hurricane Lane on. Oh, right toward Hawaii. So it basically moves it like this, and then starts moving it away from Hawaii that way. As see right here. But notice what it also does. Oh, actually, it's southwest. But notice what the GFS is also doing here. Look at this number. Hold on, let me go back to current time. So look at this number right here. This is 971. That's the central pressure forecast for the hurricane by GFS model. That's 971 millibars. Average sea level pressure is 1,013.25 millibars. So that's not very. That's fairly deep hurricane. It's actually, I think it's actually lower than that. It's deep hurricanes are actually a lot lower than that, but and the actual central pressure is probably lower. I haven't checked to see what the actual central pressure of Hurricane Lane is, but seeing it's a high in Category 4, probably the central pressure is lower than that. But you can also just look at the number of block lines, basically, which you can't really see here. And again, those are isobars. So the more isobars, the stronger, the more intense the hurricane, the deeper the lower, the lower the central pressure. And as I go forward in time, watch what happens at number 974, 972, 973. So remaining pretty steady. 971, 973, 969. 9672, 971, 979, 993, and 1007. So, and look at how many block lines there are. Much less. Much fewer. Much fewer block lines now. So, the central pressure has gone from 960 something to 1007, forecast by the GFS. Which means Lane has weakened quite a bit. Well, why is it weakened? A couple of reasons, and I'll get to that. I'll get to those couple of reasons in a minute as well. First, I'll show you the official National Hurricane Center forecast track. Again, this is where it is. Hawaiian Islands are here. You can see all these islands in pink. So everything east of Oahu, not including Oahu, but east of Oahu, including the Big Island of Hawaii, are under, let me move this thing out of the way, are all under hurricane watches. You can see down here, they're all under hurricane watches right now. So, and its forecast track is basically roughly what the GFS indicates, going toward northwest, and then turn west, and then maybe even southwest at the end here. But also look at this is a major hurricane, major hurricane, and then it weakens to hurricane, and then weakens to tropical storm. But, so that hurricane center doesn't actually bring it to Hawaii, but it brings it pretty close to Hawaii, close enough that Hawaii is probably going to see some effects, especially the eastern part of the Hawaiian Islands, but also weakens it a lot as it gets close to the Hawaiian Islands as well. So if you're going to be in Hawaii, especially the eastern part of the islands, if you're visiting Hawaii or you live in Hawaii, obviously be monitoring your news, National Hurricane Center, for updates about Hurricane Lane. Now let me show you, this is, I believe, the forecast. Okay, these are a bunch of forecast tracks from from what we call ensemble members. This is basically a GFS model run a whole bunch of times, and each one comes up with a different solution because The initial conditions of the model are all slightly different. They may use slightly different model physics to forecast, and so its forecast tracks go all the way from here all the way up to, here, which include the Hawaiian Islands. The black line is the average track. So the average track is pretty much close to the National Hurricane Center forecast track, but a little bit further south. GFS operation model actually comes pretty much close to the Hawaiian Islands there. One thing we use is ensemble numbers. So basically all of these are different possibilities of where the hurricane can go. And so we got to figure out what might be most likely and why. So why is it going to curve here? And then as it gets closer to Hawaii, instead of move that way. Well, if I go back to, that's not what I want to show. If I go back to here and look at the upper air pattern for the GFS model, this is at its current time. Is at the current time as of this morning. So we have this general ridge here in the west. We have some areas of, and I'll use a different color here to just outline it. So we have this general ridge here in the west, and then we have these areas of a little bit lower heights here in the Pacific Ocean. So these are basically what we call weaknesses in the ridge. The ridge is as strong here as it is in some other areas. So now as we go forward in time, we start seeing a trough here develop, like a weakness in the ridge develop to the northeast of Lane, which basically allows our steering flow to now start turning this way on the west side of this high pressure ridge, and that starts to direct Hurricane Lane northwest and then north toward Hawaii, toward the Hawaiian Islands. So, and you can see that pretty much now. This is by Thursday and Friday forecast. Now we have this ridge here. We actually have a big weakness in this, but basically our steering flow now is more like this. So that helps to steer Hurricane Lane northwest and then north into Hawaii as it gets closer to Hawaii. So as opposed to staying south of Hawaii. And then after that, actually, this ridge kind of reestablished itself now to the west, and so now we get this flow here and around the ridge. Hold on, let me draw that a little better. So we get this flow around the ridge this way, and now that this part of the ridge is actually filling in and starting to strengthen, it starts to push Hurricane Lane back to the southwest. So these are the types of things that influence how hurricanes move, and it's one reason why hurricanes are sometimes so hard to forecast the movement. Now, also at the same time, with how weak Hurricane Lane is expected to get, its movement is also going to start to be directed by the trade winds, which come from the northeast, southwest. So that's another reason why it'll be able to start turning to the southwest, away from the Hawaiian Islands by next weekend. All right, so just a couple more things to show you, and then I'll finish this blog for the day. So this is a forecast of the intensity of Hurricane Lane. We pretty much can throw out a lot of these high forecasts if they're so different from all the rest, because they have something else going on, and these are all models that we don't normally use anyway. So I think they're pretty much forecasting. I'm not sure exactly why this one is keeping a category 4 or 5 the whole time, but it's currently a borderline category 4, category 5 hurricane. It's Cat 5, Cat 4, so it's high in category 5,
and almost all the forecasts basically weaken it quite a bit between about here and here, so between this 36 and 84 hours approximately. And if you look at, let me go back to this one of the forecast tracks, see a lot of these tracks maybe it decided to load. A lot of these tracks bring lane closest point to Hawaii, like around the 72-hour mark here, which would be Thursday into Friday. And I think these hurricane watches for Hawaii are actually in effect from midday Thursday through midday Friday or something like that. So that 72 hours time frame, which is right here, and so Hurricane Lane is probably going to be, tropical storm category 1 strength as it gets closer to Hawaii, the Big Islands, but it could decrease rapidly in strength. Why is it going to decrease rapidly in strength? Well, one, its low-level flow is going to start interacting with the mountains on the Big Island of Hawaii in particular, but also on the other islands of Hawaii. But the Big Island of Hawaii, if you don't already know, has several mountains: Mauna Lea, Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, several fairly tall mountains. As a matter of fact, one of those two, I can't remember which one, is the tallest mountain in the world when measured from the bottom of the ocean floor. So, not that matters because the hurricane is on the surface of the water, not on the bottom of the ocean floor, but it's still, 10,000, 11,000 feet above sea level. So, as that flow starts interacting with the mountains, it starts to weaken, starts to disrupt the flow around the hurricane because it needs pretty symmetric flow in order to keep its strength. So it's expected to weaken fairly rapidly as it starts interacting with the Hawaiian Islands. And then the other primary reason is, that's the map of Hawaiian Islands, so anywhere on here, Maui, Lanai, Molokai, Hawaii are all under hurricane watches. So as it starts interacting with the Hawaiian Islands, that starts weakening the wind flow around the hurricane. We go to the current time here. And then I'll show you what this map is, if I can get to the current time. All right, so this is maybe. I apologize, my computer running pretty slow today. Hopefully I might restart it before I do a video next time. So this is the low. This is the center of circulation of Lane right here. Here are the Hawaiian Islands. So what this map is this is a map of wind shear through most of the atmosphere, 200 to 850 millibars. Hurricanes don't like wind shear. Wind shear is a change in either direction or speed or both of winds as you go up through the atmosphere. And so if there's a difference in speed or difference in winds, it tears apart the symmetry of the hurricane. So the hurricanes get pretty much disrupted. I talked about a little bit that for the Atlantic Ocean a little bit earlier, but this is a large area of high wind shear to the north of Hawaii. Well, Hawaii up to the northeast, east, and down the southwest. Hurricane Lane is currently in this environment here where you see all this blue and white, pretty low wind shear. It came right through here, low wind shear, able to strengthen pretty rapidly, okay? Well, Hurricane Lane is moving this way, okay? Now let's see what happens in this area with this wind shear as it starts moving there. So here it comes closer to Hawaii. This is on Thursday morning. And it's starting to go slow. Okay. So now we have Thursday afternoon. All right. Well, this is now Friday morning. This is when our Hurricane Lane is starting to weaken. Well, our wind shear, our highest area wind shear, has moved a little north, mostly in response to the ridge also moving north. But basically, Lane is now right at the edge of this higher wind shear, and is starting to get out of this area here of the lower wind shear. And as we go a little bit further in time, and it starts moving to the west, away from the Big Island now on Friday, Saturday. Now it's almost directly on the edge of this area of high wind shear. So this wind shear, along with the mountains of Hawaii, is expected to tear the circulation of Lane apart pretty quickly. So even though Lane is a pretty powerful major hurricane right now, southeast of Hawaii, and they expect to move toward Hawaii, the terrain and this area of high wind shear is going to start tearing apart the circulation a little bit, or actually not a little bit, but quite a bit, as it moves closer to Hawaii. So that'll greatly lessen the effects of Lane on the Hawaiian Islands. Not that Hawaii is still not going to see strong winds, heavy rainfall, probably in areas, especially upslope winds on the southeast portions of the island, especially the eastern islands, but it's not going to be as powerful, nearly as powerful as Lane is right now. All right, so that's all I have for you at the moment. Try not to make this super long, but in the future I might try to pinpoint a few things, but still give a general overall forecast. So again, if you have any ideas or suggestions about specific things to talk about, whether or not something is happening, or any questions you might have about the weather, how the weather works, that maybe I can address in a video. I hope to be able to start getting more videos regularly. It's a little difficult at the moment, but possibly starting in a week or two, I might be able to get some more regular videos. And I can maybe address those and maybe make them shorter as I am able to talk about only one or two things at a time. So that said, have a good night, and I will talk to you next time. Thank you for listening.